Hi, Journey Experts. Welcome to the new month. It's June. Thank you for sticking with us. I think it's about a year now since we started Journey Experts. Since we started Tourism Clinic. Okay, maybe 10, 11 months. We've been having interesting conversations, all thanks to your contribution, joining our sessions, and asking us insightful questions that are truly shaping your businesses. Right. And today we're talking about managing impact through smart programming and promotion, which is over-tourism and the role of tour operators. As tour operators, what role especially do you play in over-tourism? How can your business even help address over-tourism, if at all there's anything you can do? But the reason why we're having this session is that we believe that there's something you can do. And I'm
Mm,
excited today that it's our tourism consultant that is leading the session. As always, it will be insightful. Stick with us. Over to you, Matea.
mm. Thank you very much, dear Esther. Good morning, good morning. In our language, we would say dobro jutro. Good morning. Yes, you see, the season here in the northern hemisphere is really on, and early mornings are the mornings when we are still fresh. Later on, maybe because of the heat and the work, the energy is really not so much 100%. So thank you very much for doing this in the morning. And I think this was already a kind of introduction to what is going on actually now in our areas, which are very rich on heritage, and that's why we have tourism, right? That's mainly about. And the more we talk about tourism, the more visitors are coming. And the more we talk about over tourism, the more crowded it is. This is unbelievable, but that's the truth. The tourism became very affordable. And I think that's really nice because, tourism is about getting to know each other, right? Getting rid of prejudice. Cultural heritage is more well known. So this is definitely a great impact, but the other part that we don't like so much is that there are too many people at a certain place. And I think here the tour operators have huge role because the destination management, of course, they are promoting, they are general promoters, but the ones who are doing the programs are tour operators, and I think that they can manage really perfectly what's going on. Of course, it's all difficult as everything in our lives, right, and challenging, but let's have a look what are the suggestions, what we could do. First of all, we all know that we repeated that already last week, but let's just go through again: cultural, historical, and natural heritage. So that's what we are all talking about, right? And then also that tour operators have very important role because they serve as interpreters and also gatekeepers. Destination management, of course, they do the general promotion, but as a kind of a gatekeeper to a destination, this is definitely the role of tour operators. Nah? And tour operators, they shape the programs. Of course, we need to shape the programs to the needs of the customers. But on the other hand, we are the experts of our areas, and we know what could be also interesting for this goal public. So we know that what our values are, and we definitely can accommodate them to the needs of our travelers. And of course, we would like to know what the impact of tourism is, and we can then shape the programs according to that. So I would say that the role is very important. So let's just put aside this profit, right? What its economical part of tourism, but let's focus on these tourist flows, values, and impact. Of course, we are talking about, in a negative sense, of congestions, cultural dilution,
Yeah.
site degradation. I mean, this is something that, unfortunately, it just happens. And tourists, visitors, they come from different cultures. So that's why this cultural awareness is very important, right? They come from different cultures and they are often, I would say 90%, well, maybe even more, unaware of their impact, right? So that's the most important perspective that we have to have in our minds, that visitors are actually unaware of their impact, right? And of course, there are some hot spots. Here I mentioned Venice, I mentioned Barcelona, Dubrovnik. The other day I talked to my colleague from Amsterdam, and believe it or not, even some little narrow streets in my town, in Ljubljana, are already like a part of the over tourism, right? So it doesn't need to be like highlights, but it could be also a little town which we promote very often off the beaten path, but the percentage of visitors who are visiting this off the beaten path is also high. And that's why also in these areas of little towns, we need to focus on of the impact that visitors are having to these little places. No? So, first of all, I would like to say that as a tour operator, we should really focus on planning the itinerary. There is always a kind of a highlight. It should be this and this and this in the program. But on the other hand, there are always like side streets that bring us to these certain points. So I would say let's focus on that, right? So there are three parts that are a must visit, right? But how to reach these sites, of course, there are different possibilities, and that's what we can include in the program. Then the group sizes, you know what? It's a huge difference if we walk around with 12 people or if we walk around with 25. I don't want to mention groups over 35, 40, or even 50. So definitely, we need to think about that, and we really need to focus on the size of the group and to promote that the experience in a smaller groups, it's much better than in a bigger one, so that we tell to our visitors, your time is precious, you worked hard for this holiday, let's make it the most enjoyable, travel in a smaller group, so that we present them what the value of traveling in a small group is going to be for them. And then, of course, also timing, there are certain periods of the day which are really like, wow, overcrowded. But then if you go like 1 hour earlier, or maybe in the afternoon, later in the evening, that's already completely different story. So I remember when I worked as a tour manager in those places that I mentioned before, then I always suggest my travelers, let's have early breakfast. Let's go to the city earlier. The city is going to be for us. Then later on, if you would like to, you can spend time on the local market, or maybe you go to your hotel to rest because it's anyway very hot, right? And then later you can come back again. So I think this timing is another thing which is very important. Of course, a lot of sites, they even offer more affordable tickets in these, let's say, less visited periods. But on the other hand, if the ticket is the same price, it doesn't matter. We as tour operators, we as tour managers, maybe sometimes even tourist guides, we can influence those programs, and let's do it, right? It doesn't cost us a lot, it's just experience. Then definitely we should choose between that reinforcing mass tourism and redirecting the flow. So as we said, okay, medieval cities are very popular. Let's visit another medieval city which is also very cute but not so well visited, so that the experience of a medieval city is the same, but it's not so overcrowded as maybe the most popular ones, right? It's not about the ticking, the place. I've been there, been there, but it's also about experiences, the places. Nah? Um, then also, let's try to have a look, to have a control of how the sites are presented and also experienced. As I said, experiencing a medieval town with nice architecture, with little shops, with supporting the local crafts from those days, right? It is very important. But if there are crowds, we can hardly focus on what is shown in the window shop or what is presented by that local craftsman. So this is something that we would like to put in our program, and that's how we would like to motivate visitors to go for these, let's say, off the beaten path areas. Now, um, so the standard market, I would say, it's like, tick, 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 checklist. Nah? I've done this, I haven't been here, tuck, 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 tuck. Nah? But I don't think that today's traveler, 21st century traveler, is too much in that. I think that there are also a lot of them who are really focusing on thematic, story driven. So that means that if we have, let's say, special tourism like literary tourism, I am more into that. We can grab really nice sites that are usually really not well visited. We can even stay longer there. So because to, let's say, to go into the story, you need to stay in the place longer. Maybe we read the novel, maybe we know about the writer a bit more, maybe we know more about the character, and we would like to feel, we would like to see how they lived, how. And for this we need time and not crowds, because crowds are really like limiting us to indulge in this in the area. Then also, if there are any local legends, let's explain them, let's present them in the areas which are not so well visited, right? I won't now talk much about art because I think I mentioned it lots of times, but spiritual heritage, this is very important, because spiritual heritage, it's usually the place where it should be calm. But nowadays with visitors, they are getting overwhelmed and there is no peace there. So this is something that we really need to focus in our programs as well. No? The other day, we already talked about the community based tourism. So, definitely, those tours need to be led by local people, the tourist guides that are living in this area, that greet, the neighbors, the friends on the street. So, that's how we will feel more local as well, and more support to the local economy. And then, of course, also low impact. That means walking tours. I would suggest them, of course, because we don't eat much energy, just our energy. And we all know that energy consumption is just too big in the 21st century. So let's lower when it's possible. I am aware that there are some people who could not walk, of course, with disabilities, but that means that maybe they should use more local transportation. For example, in our area, we have local buses that are also available for the people with disabilities. So if it's possible, let's include them in these programs as well. And that's how we are going to support also the locals, because the local transportation, usually it's quite expensive, and if we want to make it affordable also for the locals, then the tickets are not too high. But if we are going to include visitors to use the local transportation, the situation will change, nah? And that's what I mentioned already many times, the slow travel. So let's focus on many more days that people should stay in the area, and then what to do in that area a bit longer. So I would say at least 3, 4 nights for the cities, for the hiking areas, maybe also as well. So that you do more, day trips, afternoon trips from that part. No? Limiting numbers per tour, we already mentioned, using local guides, right? Local economies, always let's include that as much as possible, please. And again and again, what I'm pointing out all the time, education of travelers on etiquette and preservation. Let's present them. We are doing this because this is the way we are going to preserve the uh, destination also for our future generations, right? The moment we present it in this way, I think they are understanding. Also, for example, we say, you know what, it's good for you that we are only 12 people in the group, because, first of all, you hear me better. We don't shout, we don't make any noise pollution in the city. And secondly, in those narrow streets, sorry, in those narrow streets that we are walking through, we are not blocking, we are still controlling ourselves, and the local can still, let's say, live their normal daily routine, right? And so we definitely should spread visitors to less known sites and also the neighborhoods, because if we are talking about the cities, of course there are still neighborhoods that are less visited, but they have maybe also very cute sites. They are just maybe not so well known. And of course, I think we should focus on offering experience that prior- prioritize meaning over quantity. So we mentioned already so many times quality over quantity. So what is going to be so impactful for our travelers? Let's do that. And then is the question, who is the right audience? For sure, we have so many billions of people all around the globe. For sure there is audience for our programs, right? So they are definitely culturally curious travelers, huh? Then there are slow travelers, digital nomads. Then we have tourists that are environmentally and socially unbelievable, curious and conscious. We have people who like to travel in small groups because they feel more comfortable, because they get more friends, they feel more as a family. So let's focus on that. We have a lot of people who are just overwhelmed when they are working, while they're working, and they would like to go on their own, solo travelers. So let's embrace them. Nah? And there are lots of educational groups in our areas. We have already the population, let's say over 65, that are already retired and they have money and they would like to do tours like that. So let's focus on them. Nah? And these groups definitely seek authenticity. They are eager to learn and they are very ethical aware travelers. So I think that there is a huge amount of people that we should include that. No? uh, then the craft is definitely something special, something local. Of course, when people are traveling, they say, oh, something like that we have also in our area, oh, this is similar, and so on. But if we present with our narrative really something unique, then there will be that bulb. Ah, yeah, So this interpretation is so important, and that should be included in those programs that tour operators are doing. Nah? That Then we definitely should emphasize the access to hidden germs, nah, and local interactions. I very often say, look, you're staying here for 3 more days, go to the market, go to local communities, mingle with locals. Sometimes we say, oh, do they speak English? I said, look, maybe if they don't speak perfect English, it doesn't matter. They will understand 1 or 2 words. You will help each other with hands, smiles, gestures. So this is also a part of the travel, no? So we definitely should use also multisensory elements. So that means that travelers would include also, of course, the food experience. I think we already talked about that, right? Craftsmanship as well, but music is so international. The other day I had a group. They were opera lovers. They visited our opera, and of course, before that, we were together for the city tour. Then we had a nice experience of the local food. They were so open minded, and it was really a joy to spend a day with them. And for them, it was great because they really saw how we are living, even though if they came, from Italy just for a day. But, they tasted our local spirit, and I'm sure that next time they will come for a longer time. No? Well, the cliches I think we need to avoid. Sometimes people say, hey, where is your umbrella so that we see you, right? I was like, no, why should I walk around with umbrella? It's like let's make sure that our groups are smaller, that we are going to go off the beaten path, that we are going to be the only group there. So there is no need for an umbrella. Okay. Nowadays, when it's so hot, it's nice protection against the sun as well. But still, nah? Then people say, where do locals eat? You know, that's another question which is quite challenging sometimes. And then when I tell them where the locals eat, they say, oh, but that's out of the city. And then I say, yes, but you can take a local transportation there, so that we are also suggesting them more outside of these tourist traps, so to say. Then souvenir traps. Sometimes people say, oh, I don't want to have like general souvenirs shops, right? But of course, if we are designing our destination properly, then local craftsmen should have also places for their shops. And that's what we need to offer in our programs, maybe like within a workshop, and then they have also opportunity to buy something as a souvenir. Nah? And of course, also this why. I always say that visitors should be like little children, why that, why that, why that. And a lot of times when I worked as a tourist guide, I was actually impressed, how many whys they asked me. And I was like, oh, these are like my children. And then you notice that this is actually very important. And it's also good for us locals because we understand us also much better. Now it's a question how to promote over all that, right? Because promotion is very important, how to stand out from general programs. And I would say that blogs that Esther, you are talking about so much, podcasts, storytelling, YouTube films, this is something that it's very important. Testimonials, when the travelers are with us and they would like to share their opinion with our future travelers, I think that's very good. Then photos, of course, for the photos we need to ask travelers if we can post, but if they allow us, I think that's something awesome. Now videos, like we are now live, but also if we make moving pictures, right, videos, that's also quite impactful. Then we have different partnerships with institutions, tourism boards, niche travel blogs, right? There are our opportunities to stand out. We have also platforms that are sustainability focused travel sites. And then, of course, also certifications, what the other day we talked about. But since some of you mentioned the costs, then I would definitely focus on these first one, two, three, 4 points, right? Because this is something that we can do by ourselves, maybe with the help of a professional like you, Esther, is you are, but definitely there is a lot that we can do by ourselves. No? Another thing which is very important is that we offer alternative itineraries with compelling titles, right? That we educate our clients via pre-tour material. For example, me as a tourist guide, I do a lot of live streaming guided tours, and to lots of tour operators, I offer first a kind of a pre-tour live streaming tour. I say, look, we do that all together, live streaming via internet. You will see what do I mean, and then you can include in your material. Nah? And lots of people really like these ideas. So live stream tours are something that I would suggest because we are running them. We tourist guides, we are professionals, so we know the area, and this is a very professional introduction to a destination. Of course, also digital maps and so on. Highlighted less crowded but equally valuable sites. So, for example, if I have live stream guided tours, I can always take people to this kind of streets and sites, and I say, look how cute it is, how great it is. So let's include that instead of that overcrowded area. Nah? And definitely an insiders stories, locals only branding. Although sometimes this is a bit difficult, because it's maybe less local but more general, right? But still, I think there are the areas where we can say, you know what, here will be like 95% locals, and that's already a great way, I think, for this kind of target market, no? So low impact heritage experiences, nah? And a lot of storytelling. With storytelling, we can really do a lot. We can make the whole difference with an excellent storytelling. Nah? As I mentioned already, walking only routes, but not always that possible. I understand that, but let's do it as much as possible. Nah? And of course, then encouraging this conscious tourism in small groups, and also to collaborate with our local cultural organizations. So, my final thought would be that tour operators are the key to reshaping heritage tourism. Destination management can do something, but tour operators are the key to reshape this heritage tourism to do really the best in this overcrowded tourism world. Nah? They can make an impact programs that preserve culture and also improve the experience. These programs are the key. And then, of course, promotion, promotion, promotion. And definitely, we need to focus on doing better, offer better, and not more. Because, with more, we just get drained, we just get tired, right? It's a negative stress. But if we focus on better, I think that's the key to a success. So, thank you very much, my dear Esther. That's what I wanted to present tonight. Well, actually, there are some questions because I'm sure that in the next few weeks there will be also question and answer session, and maybe these would be my questions for our followers to think about, and we can discuss about them when we are together in this question and answer session.
Okay. I mean, interesting. I'm going to keep these questions. These are great questions. I love how that you highlighted the importance of storytelling and just looking at other parts of a particular country that are also good for experiences, but we're not yet shedding like the spotlight on. And I love the fact that you said a lot about what tour operators can actually do. We ourselves already know because I was having a meeting with somebody and I heard that was it Dominica or somewhere on the Caribbean island, a club actually collapsed on tourists and a lot of people died. And I was saying to them that nobody can tell me that the locals did not know or the building had not given signs. So aside from the fact that overtourism can be harmful to the local environment, it can also be harmful to the folks that are coming into town too. And as we continue to go, even as the world continues to shift, we must prioritize safety for both
Yeah,
locals and travelers.
yeah, yeah. I agree with you. That is something that I haven't put out here, but safety is on the first place for sure.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us today. Looking forward to catching you next week. Thank you for joining us, Journey Experts. Please catch this session on Spotify, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on LinkedIn. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Have a joyful June. Bye bye.
Bye.